argue that President Jacob Zuma must comply with the public protector's finding that he is obliged to repay a portion of the money spent on non-security features at his Nkadla home. They have rejected the president's proposal to settle the matter after the Auditor General and the Finance Minister determine how much he owes. Johannesburg authorities have given the EFF permission to march to the Constitutional Court today. For more on the story, let's cross to Aldrin Sampear. Aldrin, a very good morning to you. Let's look at the role that the public protector is expected to play in today's proceedings.
Well, the role that the public protector will be playing is around the powers that she has, whether the recommendations that she make are just mere recommendations. Is the office of the public protector equivalent to an ombudsman office? Can you ignore her recommendations, or are they enforceable? Remember that the High Court ruling, when the DA took the SABC COO to court as well, in that High Court ruling, the judge there said that the recommendations of the public protector are not enforceable. And that's what the Nkadla ad hoc committee used during their arguments when deliberating around whether the president is liable to pay any money. And they indicated, especially Mutola Mutega, who is the ANC member in parliament, said that the judgment has been handed down. That judgment indicates that the powers of the public protector, it also indicates that the recommendations of the public protector are not enforceable. They are just mere recommendations. That's what the ad hoc committee used during those deliberations and decided that the president doesn't have any amount to pay. But that matter was obviously then appealed at the Supreme Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court of Appeal found that actually you cannot ignore the powers of the public protector. And considering that you have the Supreme Court of Appeal as well as a High Court differing on the powers of the public protector, chances are that the 11 judges as well, eventually when we get a judgment on this matter, that the judgment will not be unanimous.
Now, when we look at the repercussions for the political situation here in South Africa, I mean, how big is this case really?
Leanne, I've lost you there for a second. Can you just repeat that question?
Let me just try once again and see if you can hear us. Just in terms of the political implications of such a hearing, how big is it?
Well, the implications of this case are quite huge, and just let's take a few steps back. Remember that when this case, when it was first revealed back in 2009 that there will be upgrades at President Jacob Zuma's house, the cost was standing at around 27.9 million rand. That money is escalated to 245 million. That's the amount that we stand at right now. And it was actually the DA that went to the public protector and asked the public protector to investigate, and that was by the DA parliamentary leader back then, Lindiwe Mazibuko. And eventually there was the report issued by the public protector, and the EFF then came into parliament in 2014, and they were the ones chanting that the president should pay back the money. And they've enforced, they've rather pushed that the president should pay back the money, heading all the way to the Constitutional Court. And the DA then came as well and asked to be part of this matter. So this one probably goes to the EFF in terms of pushing for the president to pay back a portion of the money. The president has now agreed that he will pay back a portion of the money. And as you indicated earlier on, that the Auditor General as well as an official from Treasury will then sit down and determine the amount. The EFF wants the court to set down an order that those two officials determine the amount to be paid within 60 days after the court ruling. And then after that, the president must pay back the money within 30 days after those officials have determined the amount to be paid back. Quite big political implications as well for the ANC, considering that you had the police ministry that exonerated the president, that said the president has absolutely no money to pay, as well as the ad hoc committee. Remember that the ad hoc committee, there were two ad hoc committees that sat down on the Nkadla matter. Both exonerated the president, said that he was not liable. And now we have the president coming back and say that actually I'm willing to pay a portion of the money. So in terms of what analysts have been saying, they say that this is a huge embarrassment for the ANC. But some ANC senior members, as well as the Tripartite Alliance, they've welcomed the decision by the president to pay. At least they say that this means that we have one thing not to worry about heading into the municipal elections.
All right, just finally, Aldrin, before I let you go, Is there a possibility that the Constitutional Court actually throws this out and says, look, coming up to the Constitutional Court is not the way to go. You need to start at a lower court of law. Is this a possibility that this actually amounts to nothing?
Well, that's the argument that we know that's in the president's heads of arguments. But we'll have to wait and see what the judges say about that matter. But considering that when the EFF came to court, basically what they were looking for was for the president to pay back the money. Now the president has agreed to pay back the money. So that matter really becomes moot. The question now is around the amount that needs to be paid. And chances are that the Constitutional Court will go ahead with this matter, considering that we already have a Supreme Court of Appeal a ruling around the powers of the public protector, and now we have this uncertainty around her recommendations. Well, we have the argument, for instance, from the presidency that the powers of the public protector's office is equivalent to an ombudsman's office, and we'll have to have the Constitutional Court to set the record straight around where the powers of the public protector lie and how far they are stretched.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for talking to us here. That's our reporter who's going to be covering the Constitutional Court hearings, Aldrin Sampear. Now, the DA is taking